So the other day I made a video called Peace. This is what is it? I'm pardon me. Sorry, pardon me. I made a video the other day, and it's the peace of society depends upon justice. Pardon me. This is very early. And in that video, a brother responded and asked me to do a video on chapter 3 of the Holy Quran, Circle 7, ayat 17 through 23. So I'm gonna pull that. Chapter 3 is the unity of life, which I spoke on before. And I'll read. You know what I'm saying? First of all, I'm gonna tell you why chapter 3 is important, because chapter 3 again is dealing with the etiquette of a Moorish American. It deals specifically with what a Moorish American should know as a Moorish American about the higher self and the lower self, and also that we are connected by the cord of life and that nothing lives unto itself. That's some of the most important aspects about chapter 3. But this brother wanted me to go into ayat 17 through 23. And I think that's very important also, very important. So I'm going to read that to you, and then I'm going to give my breakdown of it. Chapter 3, Elihu's lessons, the unity of life, ayat 17 through 23. Men seek salvation from an evil that deems a living monster of the netherworld, and they have gods that are but demons in disguise, all powerful yet full of jealousy, hate, and lust, whose favors must be brought with costly sacrifice of fruit and of the lives of birds, animals, and humankind. And yet these gods possess no ears to hear, no eyes to see, no heart to sympathize, no power to save. This evil is a myth. These gods are made of air and clothed with the shadow of thought. The only devil from which man must be redeemed is self, the lower self. If man would find his devil, he must look within. His name is self. If man would find his savior, he must look within. And when the demon self has been dethroned, the savior love will be exalted to the throne of power. The David of the light is purity, who slays the strong Goliath of the dark and seats the savior love upon the throne. Now, that's a very powerful chapter. Those are very powerful ayats, because what it's demonstrating to me is that men have moved so far away from the oneness of their creator. They have debased themselves so far that they are seeking outside of themselves for salvation. And what they are seeking are things that are the ideas. You understand what I'm saying? You got to remember, we are taught that ideas are gods for some people. So an idea, another person's idea, can become another man's God, and that man can worship that particular God or that idea and become enslaved by that idea. A myth. That idea is a myth because it has no living salvation behind it. It is clothed in air. And what that means is that, see, thought and air are synonymous in a sense because it ties back to breath. You know what I'm saying? Breath, air, thought, it's all synonymous. But if it's just clothed with air, you know what I'm saying? That means it has no substance. You understand what I'm saying? It has no substance that is clothed in. It's not clothed with holy breath. Breath is truth, and truth is a law, and so on and so forth, and is ought. So therefore, these particular demons that men are seeking, you understand, outside of themselves, are illusions. They're external factors that will lead man further into the depths, into the abyss of a self-created hell, even though he's seeking outside of the self. Even the Holy Quran of Mecca teaches you the same thing, that these idols, you can't call on these idols. They don't have ears to hear and eyes to see, and so on and so forth. So it coincides with our Holy Quran Circle 7. This is chapter 2 from the Holy Quran of Mecca, where you can see that same type of quote. But what gets even further deep for me is how it discusses how men will use birds, fruits, and humankind to sacrifice, to give unto this particular deity or creator, or to this illusion, or to this idea. You know what I'm saying? That is not reality. So what happens is that man goes so far to debase himself, seeking outside of himself, that what happens is that he loses his way and takes on the ideas and becomes an idol worshiper, or becomes a polytheist, and so on and so forth. Now, when you read about these sacrifices and these different things, the birds, the animals, humankind, we know and understand in traditional indigenous religions that sacrifice may play a part of their particular cultural paradigm. The sacrifice of birds and different types of animals, goats, chickens, and so on and so forth. You know, that's a part of their cultural paradigm. I don't knock that. You understand? And that might be for me, or it might not be for me, but I understand the principle and the paradigm behind it. But what we are being taught is that we don't need to do those things. We don't need ceremonies and forms that are based on illusion, you know what I'm saying, that are based on the idea of something existing through this form. What deity needs blood in order to work? Who do you have to feed blood to? What are you feeding blood to in order to get a blessing from? So we know and understand in the science of life, when in order to get something from the universe, something has to be given up. But there's a way to do this, and that's what the play is. In order to gain something, you have to give something back. You see what I mean? But there's other ways to do that spiritually. We don't have to do those things on the physical manifest. And this is what we are being taught, that when man wants to find his savior, he must look in. And when he wants to see his demon or the demon, he must look within. So everything that we are dealing with specifically is within us already. We don't have to have an outside source. We don't have to use ceremonies and forms and rituals to get to an idea or to a false god that has no bearing on our reality. You see what I'm saying? So with that being stated, I think, those ayats are specifically dealing with removing particular ideologies from you and renewing and cleansing up self, that you recognize that you are the particular source. You know what I'm saying? That the only worship is internal worship, that you have to give, you know what I'm saying, all of your worship internally, and that Allah resides in the heart. You understand what I'm saying? The meeting place for Allah Ta'ala is in the heart. And that's a whole different degree. So with that being stated, we don't have to go outside of ourselves. We don't have to do certain things and kill other life forms in order to meet our creator. We know and understand also that everything is connected by the cord of life. And when you harm one thing, you're harming into the heart of Allah. So you have to be very careful how you're dealing with these types of things, because these are ideologies. And you must remember that thought on the wrong things, that too much thinking or thought can become a form of worship itself. Just thought itself can become a form of worship. And you have to be very careful how you think. So I hope, brother, that's a little something, you know what I'm saying, from my perspective on chapter 3, ayat 17 through 23. That's my breakdown of it. I hope it helps. I hope it gave you some insight. And with that being stated, peace.